coming to you on June 6th, 2026. You could also look at it as 666, which could be interpreted different ways. With regards to angel numbers, it's about bringing balance, and I see a lot of the 666 symbolism. So perhaps there's some interesting world news taking place. What we do know is that there's been back to back geometric storms, and I haven't looked today. So I've pretty much been at the park for a couple of days and around the river during this time period after this full moon. And then we have a Venus in transit, Venus in Jupiter, June 9th, 2026. And so in this video, which will be about 15 minutes, then uploaded to the new YouTube channel called Sleepless in Salida, Colorado, but also go on my Substack, what you need to know about the reality that I've been living in for 46 years. So even though I come from Portland, Oregon, and even though I'm anti-war, and even though I'm racially diverse, and even though I'm for everybody else's rights, and even though I fight human trafficking, and even though I expose pedophile networks, I have faced extreme opposition from the modern America in 2026. And if you think it's just been the far right, if you think that it's just been Trump supporters, if you think that it's just Republicans that are not too relaxed around me, you would be wrong. And I'm actually taking this quite well. It actually is empowering when you understand the real shortcomings of others, why some people are not inclusive, and what you need to do to get around it, and what you need to do to fight for real inclusivity, however you might use it. And that basically word has been abused, right? You might use it and lose somebody who's on the other side and go, I'm so tired of hearing this word inclusive. Sounds kind of gay, and I'm not really supposed to talk like that. Might lose some of you. But the point is this. I think that there's another agenda. And I'm not right-wing, but I think there's another agenda. Why certain things are promoted that aren't necessarily popular by everybody. Wow, those same people going, inclusive and this, that, and the other. What you need to see between the lines here is a pattern of perpetual supremacy ideology that is still continuing, but in this case, in this pride worldview. I'm having flashbacks to 1986 when the former mayor of Portland, Oregon, Tom Potter, was doing the dance on the thing. But why was he doing that? Popularity, to bring us into the federal government further and further as Portland, Oregon became more of a police state. There are so many ways in which they've used to push forward something. And even though, I'm not a Republican, I share a certain sentiment that some of the critics have about some of those shows that were taking place. There's no reason. I got the headset so I don't have to shout so loud, be a little bit further from the camera. There's no reason before people are of age that anybody should be kind of like propagandized that this should be your future to be a better person. And that is the missing thing. It's not a conspiracy at all. It's practicality. When there is real-world exclusion of certain voices and attitudes, especially when they're outside the left and the right. And then under the banner of conspiracy theory, a lot of things just can't be discussed anymore, especially with the controlled media. Even if I care about certain cities and I care about the plight, I have a couple stickers here I want to run by you. Check this out. This is humantrafficking.com. He pays for everything in exchange for dates. What does that sound like? What have I been saying for years? What does that sound like? That sounds like the modern marriage dating situation. It says he pays for everything in exchange for dates. That's funny. You know what I think? I think the people that run this organization aren't really grounded in what's going on with human trafficking. But yes, that is true. That the modern marriage relationship thing is to a certain degree human trafficking, which is why there is not much opposition to it, because they're already selling that ass. They're already open for business. So let's talk about it. What is real inclusivity? in the day and age in which people are excluded for freedom of speech, even if they're not even a right winger, just because they're thinking for themselves. And that's the major difference between how people related to me in the 2000s on Portland Cable Access TV that were inclusive, that were curious, that were against these things. We've actually been conditioned since Bush, through Obama, through Trump, to actually just not care. There are actually people that were very anti-war that were LGBT that I knew back in the day, or it was their full-time thing. Glenn Owen, for example, may he rest in peace, was on KBOO. And because of his status, he was able to share my podcasts at times, able to share lectures from David Ray Griffin. He was able to, through his connections there and his lifestyle on KBOO radio, air those questions about 911 that typically would not be welcome on a station like that. KBOO won't even consider what I have to say. And so that's what we're dealing with right now, is where I can send an email, be polite, bring up the issues, report my news, send them the news, explain to them the situation, tell them in 2023 and 24 what to look out for in the news, and then just bring up a bunch of issues and then see what happens. And here we are 9 months into, for example, solarwars.substack.com. And we see that these things are basically too controversial. When I came to this place, there was one particular place I went to, don't need to mention it now, but it was right up the street, where it was airing some of these issues, and then he called the cops on me and had me 86'd. It wasn't necessarily that he was a part of anything specific, just trying to basically be an authoritarian. And so I've seen that particular individual a couple times since then. And I just try to, stay out of his way. And now he tries to stay out of my way. I was down here a little bit and just got so tired of the authoritarianism. I was just sort of walking towards him as if I might fly into him, what your world would call a football tackle. But I'm cool. I've made peace with the cops. They're leaving me alone. They're a lot better here than Mesquite, Texas, than even Portland, Oregon still has some problems with people being arrested for nothing. A lot better than Costilla County. A lot better than a lot of places. And so this is actually me breaking ground on a small topic. More complex topics I'll talk about when nobody's here. We have both the internet and the power cord, so there's no need for solar panels. And ultimately, I don't want to be doing a lot of podcasts at the library or McDonald's. And so this is actually the benefit of being invisible to this demographic. There is a benefit to also being short when you're camping in your car, in your 5.6. There's not a whole lot of things that pay off. Also, by God making me a genius and ass ugly to this modern LGBT whatever that claims to be inclusive, I don't have a bunch of mouths to feed, people to worry about for the coming collapse that's coming. It's just me and my mystical cat. By the way, I got a cat carrier today. Let's just keep changing topics to keep you confused as to what I'm talking about. So I was at the thrift store today at band camp, and we'd like to prod, no pun intended, the good-looking employee to see if she has any consciousness or intelligence. I want to make sure that she's not like the rest. Anyways, the ladies here have a big anti-book sentiment. You wouldn't believe it if I told you, or would you? That library over there is a real piece of work. It's funny how they got a book on Jupiter, a book on Mars, a book on Saturn. And I tell you, I wrote a book about the solar effects of our world wars and stuff, what Alexander Chizinsky talked about 100 years ago before the Russian oligarchy put him in the concentration camps for re-education. Here I am, being thrown out by some whatever in Mesquite, Texas, another product of her environment. They put it in the water. Poison water, poison food, artificial intelligence, working basically in the ghetto, and then being like, everything's fine. Oh, the cops will protect me. I don't need a man. My 22 revolver is awesome. Your 22 revolver is a joke. And so you have a bunch of people that are basically clowns. It's like, what's that song from Marilyn Manson? We're all stars now in the dope show. Folks, it's over. Once I figure out a microphone setup and I start editing Anthony Hilder's warnings about the future, the elder from the grave that everybody forgot about in the conspiracy theory movement, but he was more right than Alex Jones about how we would end up. We'll add his voice to Metallica. We'll add his voice to Thunderstruck. Then we'll see how much they like those songs. But it's all for the best. Because as David Icke said, here comes the community safe guy. He must have heard I was broadcasting. Because they watch me from the trees here, from the cameras. Because it's 1984. TV screens and everything. But you can get quite the education here. I had a nice talk today with Ted, the alcoholic. He just sits here and drinks. Freedom. Anyways, dude, you might want to put that down. Oh, no. Hey, let's go eat. Oh, okay, let me follow Ted the trunk up the street. This will work out fine. You guys need some help? I don't need any help. I'm following him. Perfect, dude. Tell him you're following the drunk. Then we go to the Mexican restaurant. And they're like looking at both of us. Like, what the hell is going to happen here? And I'm thinking he probably came in there and made a scene. Nope, they're just like that. Wow, $16.15 burrito. 5 minutes later, a $5 burrito in Portland was better. So it's just interesting how much is changing in just a few years. And the land has doubled and tripled in just a little bit. So what does that do to the average wage slave who hasn't developed themselves spiritually? To the average wage slave who hasn't developed themselves spiritually and developed morals. They keep adjusting to this world to where people, hear through the grapevine about the great Portland, Oregon, or where I'm from, where I've been excommunicated, or the great Taos, New Mexico, or the great Durango, and what do the locals see? Things go up, and away. And it's not that immigration isn't some sort of an issue or causing some sort of a monetary thing, but it's not the ultimate weight and all that has caused, and crime that's causing the national debt, which is a bipartisan conspiracy. And so let's talk further, because I'm just going to keep talking. As I slept last night, the heavens spoke into me. Blackstone. And the words were Blackstone. Man, I can't wait to upload this for y'all. We're going to do music, and I'll get some Red Bull later, but it's early in the day. And so I'm sitting here being Mr. Prophetic Utterance. It's like automatic writing, automatic talking from the heavens, summoning the masters. Anyways, I have a long history about warning you about these corporations coming together as one, and then enslaving the people, and then selling us as products, basically. And then the word comes to me last night as I slept, Blackstone. So Blackstone, which is already corrupt like Blackwater, is probably going to be involved in human trafficking. And only in the modern America could people hear what I'm saying and either ignore it or look down on it. Except for maybe people that are above a certain age group. Or under a certain age group. That's the interesting thing. Very young people and older people. You see how awesome this is? Now, last night I got some great footage. Got some great footage of somebody over here who just wanted to stare at me nonstop when I didn't want him to stare. He came up here. He didn't like the vape pen. He has his dogs. He's got a brown wife, but he don't like me. It's just hysterical. Straight out of a comic book. So we look at each other for a while, but he's getting into it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going up the street. Boy, oh boy. I thought he was a prison guard. I thought he wanted to do a cavity check. Then there was another person at Safeway. He's doing a double take. It's like, wow, they found the Messiah. Then there was somebody else. This one was checking. She was checking me out as I was meditating. Few extra pounds, but pretty blonde lady. But then she got upset when I looked back at her. And then that was the awkwardness. It's like, aw. It's like that scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas in the hotel room where he's like, eye contact, man, eye contact. It's just like that. So that's what I meant earlier in other videos when I say that people do have a psychic intuitive nature. But they have to keep it under control or they will be controlled by that psychic nature. Let's just keep talking. Let's just let it out because we're not going to be on. We're talking right now after a full moon heading towards a Venus-Jupiter transit. So there's an energy expansion. So while they're not necessarily thinking about that, they're thinking festival, river, trip, summer. And that's as far as it goes. I'm over here from another perspective, looking at world events, riots, travel, from an energy perspective that's not covered by the New Age movement, where I'll also talk about the hate crimes happening at the same time that we're having this happening. It's straight out of 1979's The Wall, Run Like Hell, where they're surrounding Sikh families and they're beating them into the ground. Okay, I'm the only one that I am aware of in spiritual communities actually discussing this, because I'm a warrior with the psychic powers who's addressing what this collective hive mind cannot and will not. So again, they're at war with inclusiveness. There's nothing inclusive about the current woke movement, Black Lives Matter, and LGBT. And I've done everything to be inclusive to them on both sides. And what is it really about the decision to be so, well, they project onto just Trump, not that he's my buddy. No, it's not that. It's that the situation we're in and what they're complaining about came from the causes and conditions that were created first by people that came. They don't want to admit that, and they don't want to admit that certain things they call conspiracy theories are real. Well, then, if that's the case, they're never going to be able to turn anything around. But we'll get more political at another point in time. We're going to keep it on this. So I have history dealing with folks who get hoity-toity that are in certain lifestyles about spirituality and the discussion of morality, period. While I do associate with, liking animals and squirrels, and I have a cat, my theory is that the furry thing is actually conditioning us to be less human and compassionate in the end as a result of what humans are allowing to be done to other humans. But at the same time, animals in the animal world don't have high-tech weapons or video games. The humans do. That's the dangerous, precarious thing. And now the next thing that I'll tell you quietly through the headset is that I don't see a great difference between the photographs depicting what would be called the Hitler Youth and, in fact, there's like a sense of wickedness. And what would I attribute that to? What's the first thing that I think of? And do I do astrology, per se? You know, what I do is I go, what year were they born in? And what were the causes and conditions? What was taking place on that planet? I don't get into necessarily astrology not to knock it or say that it has no value or has no meaning. The question is, what was taking place during that period in which they were hatched? Which is a better way to put it than born. Hatched. Were there wars taking place? What was taking place when they were born? And then when you look at that, you can look at their real personality. Because they grow up where they are being conditioned by the media. By what's being heard, what's being said, it paints their world. Okay? So I believe they are going to continue to push these drafts 10 years and 20 years down the line. I don't feel that way. I know that unless we have a major spiritual renaissance, which I'm not buying. I don't see it. This is what conscious parents need to do, is prepare to resist for what's coming later. All right? All right. It's very simple. Get your disability ready. Pay attention to the world leaders. Now we have draft dodgers in power. They want to draft kids, yet they don't want to fight the wars. You know. So where were we? Yeah, it's all a matter of, so when was I hatched? Created. In that same time period that all that creative content was created. And what was the underlying force? The underlying force that caused Mount St. Helens, solar maximum. While some authors will associate that with mental illness, others will associate it with psychic abilities, which is considered mental illness to your standard mental health field. So what you actually have, in my opinion, from studying the solar cycles and personalities based on year they were born, not month, is solar maximum, solar minimum personality types. Two different personality types based on when they came out. So it's not just astrology, it's the wars or lack of wars and or solar cycles that's going to determine the adult's personality. That is my theory. That's my theory. And so there are people that came out of the late 70s and early 80s that are a certain way, especially if they grew up with thinking parents and hippie parents. And then you have the end of the real hippies, the rise of the fake hippies, which is buying like the fake hippie shirt and this hippie shirt and that. But they're not. This lady came by just smiling across my path. I thought she was going to tell me to shut up. I thought she was going to hit me over the head with a baton. Right? Well, what's this one say? Okay. Got it. Well, did you ask for help when it happened? Did you exile anybody who was actually trying to rescue you? Because that's what we have. We have the rise of the bad boy. We could say, well, yeah, I am a bad boy against the Matrix. No, 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 no. You have to be an actual bad boy. Aw, shoot. No, I refuse to play the game. But by refusing to play the game, I've retained my youth. At 46, I look like I'm what? Exactly, a boy. That's called vitality for the fight ahead, because we're being attacked in mind, body, and spirit by the system. Okay? Through cell phones, through 5G, through data centers, through smart meters, through all these things that our ancestors evolved without. These things are happening. Guess what? Not brought to you by Afghanistan, not brought to you by Iraq. So, of course, we'll talk about those things later, but the real reason they want to get rid of just a whole chunk of the earth and just wipe them out is to make sure that they won't have any spiritual opposition once all the masters are gone. That's the real thing. It has nothing to do with terrorism. It has everything to do with them, whatever they are, creating their Death Star. You know, and then everything's now going to technology and space wars. So again, ritual magic is important. I say, if focus on prayer and meditation for this region, a pyramid where this being the center, with me directing this storm from that river, using the energies here for something different than the norm, being conscious of my history in Blanca, not an accident for 5 years in Costilla County, not an accident. I lived on my own land in Pagosa Springs and thought about Chimney Rock as a power center, doing my research in the Hopi, using it as a power center, then learning about Dion Fortune, the magical Battle of Britain, how she used Tor as a power center, where she and her group of meditators were countering the thought forms that were shooting out of the dark castles of Nazi Germany. They and the Celts in England and the Welsh were countering what he was doing. That's what I'm doing right now, or trying to do. And I'll tell you what, Dion Fortune isn't perfect. She comes lost as a little racist to Indian folks. She comes across as a power tripper. She probably was an infomaniac. She did time in the penitentiary. No, wait, in the mental hospital. But she was a magician. But they'll tell you, you get down that road of the occult magic, you can go nuts. Well, what the hell do you think happened to my girlfriend, or this lady I was living with? Let's talk about it. I mean, come on, folks. Come on, man. I don't like Biden, but I shouldn't say it. Come on, man. Violent video games, 8 hours a day. These are how I express my psychic abilities. There you go. That's what happens when you have psychic abilities run awry without the sacred masculine to ground it out. Bunch of crazy witchcraft and voices in the head. You're the fault. No, you're the one who opened up the doorway. So she's got voices in the head. And that's what we found out in our little experiment. That these women that have positioned themselves into power are covering for other women that have voices in the head. Meaning, we've been dealing with the schizophrenia thing with the ladies for thousands of years. And what they're doing now with the phones is they're getting rid of us so they can have full-on connection to the gray aliens so they can rule the earth between now and 2100. Once they have the microchip, okay, let's talk about China. And then China's leading the way. They've got those people microchipped now. And then we got Musk over here associated with, who's been pushing, well, you should, allowing, well, on Grok. I mean, obviously, anybody with a thinking brain who hasn't been turned to mush right now by 5G should be able to decode this matrix. I can go into any town, any jurisdiction. You understand I'm invisible to these people? But that's the way I want it. Because this is the matrix. I have literally an invisibility cloak. I could start screaming right now and they'd be like, it's okay. Maybe it's good I don't have the megaphone. All right, get your tickets, solarwars.substack.com. Join my secret society. Knock on the door. I'll have a little card here at some point once I'm ready to promote the website. But for now, people will come and go. But who knows who I could recruit into my Jedi army, who's around me. But really, it's a 1 in 1,000 chance to get the people that are really down for this work. And do we really need thousands of people to change the world? Or do we just need 144 people to save the children? What's that about 2029 and the asteroid? I don't know. I'll get back to you later. But the late Tom Horn of Skywatch TV was a prophet to a certain degree and talked about 2025. And we're going to keep talking about that and the next couple of years and the solar flares and solar cycles that are taking place and the influences. He's on Bluetooth. I was almost distracted. He was almost distracted. And so when we talk about the content that's going to go out for the people that need to hear it through the underground, all different types of tactics will be used to avert the shadow banning using artificial intelligence. And then handing it out and then having it, it's literally the Terminator, man. It's literally John Connor. It's as if John Connor had a YouTube channel, and he's just basically warning about the robots. This is coming. You don't need to give me any money. You don't need to talk to me. Here are the instructions to save your soul. Now run. Here's the manual. Here's the manual. Now run. Here's the soundtrack. Run to the hills. Here's the inspiration. Here's the documentary. No trace. No child left behind. No soul left behind. So when we talk about selfless service to the Creator and me going in like a ninja, do you understand the anxiety that I had in Dallas, Texas? When I'm not even from Dallas, Texas, trying to expose the human trafficking mafia of Dallas, Texas, without any concrete proof of who runs it, just knowing they're so evil there that that's just what they do. They human traffic. They're either going to human traffic a female or they're going to human traffic a male into the mental institution if he gets upset about the human trafficking. You see how they did that? They trafficked me, and they taught me a lesson for being against human trafficking. Just to teach me a lesson. Then you tell people they did it and they laugh. Then they have the female strip search me. So they have the power to bring me to my knees for being against human trafficking. You understand where this pride is going and leaving me behind in the third world and people being killed by your weapons and your past presidents, including Obama, who drone strike more than Bush. That's what we have here. Well, I don't feel nothing. Okay, let's dive into that. You feel nothing. What's your lifestyle? You feel nothing. Let's take a look at this. Okay. So then there's an agenda then by some people, I think, to get rid of all the world's religions and all the world's morality. That's right. Out of what? False flagging? Saying somebody's against you when all I've done is defend LGBT? Where is the receptiveness in going be anti-war? They're not anti-war. They want to be in the military. Whoa! You want to go into the military? We just gave you your rights to marry yourself. If you go to the military, you're joining the Nazis and you're killing brown people. Okay, so what's really going on here then? Because when you go to these anti-war movements, it is not inclusive at all. So what's going on? Who's the hateful one? What the hell? There are so many resources that are out there. There are so many ways to be inclusive to people that are from the third world that haven't done anything. We have to have a revelation of consciousness to avoid physical conflict. We have to have spirituality. We have to have inclusive psychics. We have to have people understanding that we have to have some morality. Otherwise, we have a continuation from Trump to the next system, to the next system, to the next system. And I'm telling you, and I'll tell you more later another time, but I mean, there's value in chastity. And I'm telling you, that's not really valued in our society. That's seen as the false freedom in Portland, is for men to think carnal thoughts. They encourage it from the moment you're born. And then when you eat the carrot of the supposed feminist movement, then you're bad. Wait a minute, but you said it was good in 1979, and you said it was good in 1985, and then you said it was good in 1990. Then in the year 2000, you said, well, wait a minute, all that's bad. But didn't you teach those people for 10 years to be that way? Isn't this like a petri dish? Isn't this like the Matrix? In other words, if isn't this a simulation? And the best movies that I would use is Dark City, They Live, and The Matrix, and I would merge those together. So I'm not anti anything. I'm pro life. I'm lots of different things. I'm inclusive. I'm nonpartisan. But the fragmentation of society politically mirrors the fragmentation of consciousness. Now, I'll tell you, with our technological grid, which has surpassed our humanity, everybody connected, we're actually more isolated than ever. And not everybody is aware of what's happening on Facebook, that on Facebook I'm on mute, that on Facebook that I can. And so when people are out there and they're thinking, for example, let's talk about another topic that's also controversial but gets away from this hot topic. The horrifying female to male abuse when they're celibate, called incel. When a man refuses to play the woman's game and he's rejected because he's an honorable man, because he has values, because he's against murder, because he's against human trafficking, because he's against materialism and racism and racist men. That's what we have. We have a system where those people actually, it's not like Hollywood. This is not Karate Kid where the nice guy finishes first. This is the other planet. This is the other planet. Nice guys finish first is the planet you ascend to when you prove yourself to enter into that place of Willy Wonka, whatever. There's just fruit and money just growing everywhere. To get to the Willy Wonka, he like that. To get to the Willy Wonka reality, we got to prove to, and that's what I'm doing. Through service, through making websites about Portland, about Texas, and about standing up for everybody without being left or right, God's going to help me out, or Spirit's going to help me out. And I've prayed to the Spirit of Portlandia when I was in Portland, City of the Wounded Goddess, and 10 grand ended up in my hands because I did what was right. Okay, by megaphoning in a cuddle house where women are exploiting men who are broken and getting every last dollar. And what happened? She became sick from that whole thing. And Stephanie quit her job. Stephanie quit her job. Well, it was easy for me to see that well, you're going to take a guy's money just so you can get a hug from him. Eventually, some psycho's going to move to Portland. And guess what? A bunch of psychos moved to Portland, Oregon. It's not actually funny. Yeah. It's kind of a horror film. But anyway, told you so. And in Dallas, Texas, I'm thinking, AI data centers are coming. AI data centers are coming. Woman kicks me out. AI data centers moving in next door. Hallelujah. Praise Jesus. I'm kidding. But honestly, and then we look at the cell phone towers. Those teenage kids were so nice to me at Sunnyvale, Texas, Hope Coffee. Then the cell phone towers came. They put on top of the high school. Then they became vampires. What makes this place special is the lack of cell phone towers, the lack of EMF radiation. They just need me to tell them that, apparently. I have to write the manual. They don't know that I'm the unofficial cop. The reason the cops don't come around anymore is because I'm here. Do you see anybody here drinking, doing drugs? Yeah, it's because I'm here. Anyway, crime rates drop where I'm at for about 3 miles until something happens. Then karma kicks in, and then it's Welcome to the Jungle. The intro from Lean On Me, 1989. Great movie. Warning to the future. Also Solar Maximum, just like right now. Solar Maximum, solar flares, riots, fornication, drugs, drinking, spirituality. Pick your own adventure. I mean, literally, some people are skeptical. I think that the cops should be the last person to be skeptical. When I say that I could run the FBI, I'm not just making things up. I'm not going to get a chance to run the FBI. Why would I want to run the FBI? But when I say that I know that I can run the FBI and clean up those naughty networks, I could if I can take back power or if I can take charge. But they'll never allow it. So I will have to be a renegade and write things out and then, make things appropriate and leave books. And then it's straight going to be the Nag Hammadi 2.0. As the Gnostic Nag Hammadi was discovered in clay jars in 1945 in Egypt, a whole new world of understanding these aliens, these greys, these demons, these archons, manipulating these women and men. We begin to become aware of the others. That which is depicted in Dark City. The Hat Man, the whole paranormal thing. What I will be creating before I transform back into my real form is at least 10 books that will help people understand that which controls them. That which has possessed their mother and father to hurt them. that which has possessed them to hurt their spouse, or vice versa. That these things are not isolated incidents. You can read Eve Lorgan's book, Dark Cupid, about the supernatural influence over human affairs, how basically whole lines and bloodlines are being directed and controlled by these archonic entities that live for thousands and thousands of years, that run this matrix and determine what type of reality. No, we might be in charge of a chicken coop, but that's about it. Obviously, level of intelligence of the people that I've met can't even open up a book anymore and look at cause and effect. Cause and effect? There is no cause and effect. Dude, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, there's many ways you can measure cause and effect. And we're actually moving philosophically into a do thou wilt. There is no cause and effect. Depleted uranium everywhere. Babies without parents and good dads and moms everywhere. And then you have the consequence. And then also the difference between today and years ago is some people are not aging well as a result of the modern lifestyle and propaganda, whereas you look at how I came up, and also Oregon. That's the thing about nature that people won't admit that are narcissists, especially in Portland, Oregon. It's nature in Portland that made those chicks look so hot. It's not them as an individual, it's the environmental factors that make an area very valuable because it's playing on pheromones. I'm just talking honestly. I'll look handsome, more handsome, and people will be more responsive to me when I have a Portland energy with Portlanders. So that's the thing that I'm trying to reach out to them. It doesn't matter where someone lives. If someone's valuable, if someone has something decent to say, you shouldn't care just about where people live or how much money they make or whether they're on the radio or not. The fact that I have my psychic antenna on all these different cities and the connection to the solar flares taking place is a unique position to hold. And I've already done my research. I'm going to go to Sedona once I have my 3 months here and I reach my full healing or as much as I can push it. I'm going to go to Sedona and I will just make that video and bring her with me or give her a card, but she won't watch it till the event. No, I'll just get in the car and drive 9 hours to Sedona, record the video, and then upload it, and then come back here and brag about it. But they're going to run. They're going to run if I try to educate them. They're going to be opposed to the light at first, unless I can package it. I was talking to somebody the whole time. Let's talk about something else. You're going to like this one. I liked it because I handled it well. She was sitting over there staring at me. Well, I thought that was an invitation to talk. She's staring at me over there. So I go over and talk. She's got dark skin. She's Hispanic, probably 18. And then I ask her, like the permission to talk first. And then I launch into, you know what I do. Where is it? I launch into the book. And then she's babysitting for like little Damien. Little Damien comes over, and his blue eyes start, glowing red, like snarl, snarl, snarl. Why are you talking to my babysitter? Like, wow. Like when I think in my imagination of the new Hitler Youth, when I think in my imagination about it, it's like I think about like these little Damiens. They're like, were born a couple years, they were handed a cell phone. There's like, deep fakes of this, that, and the other, all this propaganda, TikTok now being controlled by the Nazis. And they're sitting there thinking they're unique, but they're like on a Nazi script, thinking that they're like counterculture when they're mainstream culture. So anyway, you can be 2, 3, 4, have a cell phone, and be totally radicalized to the Fourth Reich. And that's why they have to control all the social media networks. So what you have here are people that have chosen to look at the technologies as benign when they are weaponized. And they're actually weaponized in some cases against certain people rather than the holder themselves. There's way more going on with these phones than they're willing to believe. They think all these movies are fiction. They think the Matrix is fiction. They think that spirituality is a conspiracy theory. Now I'm being surrounded. Okay, so let's go deeper. Where else were we going to go? I think we're talking for like maybe 5 minutes, right? And then at some point, there's like micro conversations around me. It's almost like they can't hear me. Okay, just continue. I need water. Can somebody bring me a drink? I want a 6-pack. Over there. No, he's not going to do it. He's in a wheelchair. I asked a guy in a wheelchair to give me a 6-pack, and he flipped me off just now. No expression. I'm just trying to get her eyes. I'm just trying to get her eyes. They threaten me and they force me to do podcasts. No, that's what they do. They threaten people and they make them do podcasts for Fox News. He doesn't want to hear it. I'm trying to save your dog's life, man. They're coming for your dog, bro. Okay, it's not working. Humor isn't okay here, but it can work in certain doses. I think there's just a lot of psychic noise here, so I'll come here and I'll clear out the park and do the Om thing and yalla yalla bing bong. You know, it's amazing. Just no sage. More cowbell though. You know that bit with Christopher Walken? We're going to go get some cowbell down in Sedona and Flagstaff, Arizona. But yeah, no, they're not having it. They're not having it. Yep, no. It's a dog culture. You know, what was that Republican candidate? Muslims are lower than dogs? What a guy. I think he's going to be running for office. In fact, I think I'm going to be creating some fake news, right-wing style, Alex Jones style. Thank you very much. I learned from the best. This week in Salida, Colorado, controversial Republican such and such, he says dogs are better than immigrants, is now moving to Salida, Colorado. And the crowd goes wild. Then we cut to a scene of the Salida City Council talking about one topic and one topic only. Unleashed area for dogs for 45 minutes out of the 1 hour. That's a 75% focus on four-legged animals over every single issue in America. And what about the cats? I've not seen a single cat here except my own. And those cats that have been abandoned on BLM land. Dog supremacy, folks, will be opposed from the highest mountaintops. All right, let's move forward. So the whole thing was, I offer her the book, I offer her the teachings of the Masters of the Far East, and they're like, no, I don't want the teachings of the Masters of the Far East. Bad man. So then I know, back off, go away, run up to the hill. So I do it, walk over here, run over here, I do a podcast for a half hour about God knows what, but you'll hear about it later. Then I go over here, to get some water. They're over there at the skate park, big waste of money, have a whole podcast about that. I'll try not to bore you. But the synopsis is, how much money do they spend on this skate park? In fact, let's go ahead and just change the dynamics here. Because this is obviously more exciting. There we go. Let's focus on some drunks. And then sometimes I wonder, how many times do they have fights spill out outside that Victoria bar? Heard good things about it, but I walk in that bar and it's like, oh my God, this place stinks. And it does. It absolutely stinks. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink in a van down by the river while doing a seance with the dead Chris Farley. Because I do seances while drinking, because I'm crazy like that. Yep, I did it all in Dallas, Texas. Summoned the Ultimate Warrior, Patrick Swayze, and then a riot started. And they came for me. Then I started a megaphone. Not while drinking, after drinking. Because she threw me out of the house. But anyways, going back to her story at band camp. So I'm walking over here, and they're at the skate park, and then she sees me, she's like, oh my God, it's Spiritual Guy. And she starts running and getting on her phone. She's preparing for the worst because, I start talking about how, boy, oh boy, am I so perturbed that people reject my truth about such and such. Then she's like, oh, okay, I'm rejecting your truth too, that we should be concerned about human trafficking. Thus, I'm going to be afraid of you and treat you like you're the enemy. Well, that was educating. And so, after 22 years of saying this and being called a liar, you can go somewhere, be silent, meditate, try to be nice, and people will still dog you, like The Matrix. What was that thing that we did the other day? It was about the Matrix movie. The Matrix movie about, well, some people can observe, and that's fine. I'm talking about when I'm just minding my own business, being quiet, doing my own thing, and then people will come and be like, oh, that person looks like the person who I think's the enemy, or some other thing is just going on. And the world's so psychopathic, like my mom, like the people in my main audience that I talked to for 20 years, that they're brainwashed into thinking that people aren't like that. And that what I'm showing you is Fox News is saying. What Fox News is saying and what Facebook is doing is trying to motivate people that are in that dark world to do violent things. And that's why you have the teenagers in the UK beating up Sikh families, surrounding them. And that's why families and husbands need to learn martial arts. My advice for couples is to do martial arts I don't think that any couple should not do martial arts. I don't think that any couple should not do martial arts training and prepare for a gang attack. They should all have a plan, and I think it's weird for people to not have a plan. I think it's weird for people when they're violent themselves and they worship guns to look down upon people that are half their size that are beating the crap out of the heavy bag. They could have learned something from me at 24 Hour Fitness when they were glaring at me for being half the size of their boyfriend while rocking that heavy bag. It was a weird experience, but being a psychic, I read every second of their brains while telling the future. And it's really sad what this Nephilim race has done to us, what the fallen angels have done to us with the worships of the giants. And really, that's what we have here. We have people that just want short men dead. There is no such thing as body positivity for short, ethnic, psychic men who are against human trafficking. It does not exist, and in time, none of us will even exist anymore, and they will have full control over your planet and your children. Are you happy? Are you excited? You like Trump? You say you're not with him? On what grounds? What's your evidence you're not with him? I've had to deal with the truth about 911 and what they've been doing to those people over there way before people were crying rivers about Palestine. Okay, I've had to live in the nation that's made my dad's people barbecue chicken and had to deal with liars, professional liars, talking about inclusiveness and both the psychopathic, demon-possessed left and right blaming each other while refusing to be accountable for their actions and their kids. And that's what we have here. Here's our next topic. We'll take a 10-minute break to let a 10-second break. We have a new generation where there are no morals regarding parenting, okay, and discussions about the future. What we have are people that never wanted to be honest about the past and the future, okay, and we're a long ways away from people realizing that those people in the Middle East are friggin' Native Americans that were minding their own business, Native Middle Easterns. So you just have a continuation of the desecration of native lands with what's being planned for that whole world. Okay, so the only way to avert this and to get me on your side and to get me to, or anybody's side really, to convince me that things have changed is to see people being educated at the young level, that they are to treat women and people with respect. Now, if people are angry with me for talking about the reality of certain things that I won't mention here because they're young ears, but we talked about in the other videos, then we're not dealing with people that see other people as equals. We're dealing with some people that think that they're a superior species who think that they have a divine right to rule over others. Does that sound familiar? And trust me, you don't have to have like a history growing up in the Catholic Church or the South to have those expressions of bigotry. It doesn't have to be something that's taught to you. No. What I am saying after 46 years of dealing with your kids who are not taught equality is unless someone is taught to be inclusive, unless someone is taught to be nice, unless someone is taught to be anti-war, unless someone is taught to not play violent video games and watch those movies, they will. And so, under the guise of women's freedom and the removal of the dad of the sacred masculine, especially from my life, as a child and what happened there, and what's happening on a worse level to other children, in which things are happening in this town that have been told to me. In this town, they told me things that are happening in this town, but we won't say it here, but I know what's happening in this town. They told me what's happening in this town with the little kids. So, as a result of that, we have people that are fakes and phonies that want to hold up a false view of how things are. All right? And that's not how you want to raise your kids. As soon as your kids learn English, they should be learning about the Battle of Light and Dark. Show them Star Wars. Show them Darth Vader. And teach them the role that Darth Vader is playing in the world. It's amazing how many spouses of men, it's amazing how many women turned my best friends against me so that they could control their husbands. It's the blueprint. It's happening right now. He's bad, he's this, he's that, he's that, he's that. Only one couple decided they would come up and fixate on me because they heard everything. Probably military family. And I think often about Ryan McPherson. Here I am talking to my friend Ryan McPherson when I'm in Pagosa about his alcoholism. And Ryan McPherson's wife hears that I'm criticizing his alcoholism, that his Viking ass is drinking and driving, and she chews me a new one when I'm trying to save her husband's life. She wants her husband to be a bad boy, and so she does everything to get into her husband's ear and turn her husband away from me. And I lose Ryan as a friend because of her. And then they get so afraid and paranoid they take down their Facebook accounts. Yeah, you screwed over a crystal child. You should be ashamed, you friggin' Nazi. Like, these people were friends with a dude who had relations with children, man. And when you deal with a bunch of people who are hanging out with a dude who bragged about relations with children, it is racism. It is bigotry. The only reason he liked Obama is he said Obama was signing his SSDI checks. You don't need Obama for that. Trump signs them too. They're all pieces of garbly-goo. The presidents aren't the ones giving you or not giving you SSDI. It's the system that was... Oh, man, the residue from that is atrocious. Now, I hope you understand. My biggest fan here is gone, man in the wheelchair. Probably Republican, but he heard enough. The point is this. If you want to prove me wrong, you prove me wrong through actions and behavior. You don't prove me wrong through unfollowing. You don't prove me wrong by ignoring me. You don't prove me wrong by being angry with me. You don't prove me wrong by isolating me. You prove me wrong by being the opposite of what I'm saying is going on. And it doesn't matter who it is. If I'm saying that this is the blueprint, this is what I've experienced, this is my story, and then people hear that, the only way that you can debunk me is if you're kind. You're a society that loves death metal. You're a society that loves violence. You actually love loud men when they're bad and evil, actually. Do you want me to show you some receipts? What they're allergic to is when the yelling is empowering and it's in line with doing something right. Right? So you have a society that likes death metal too much, I think. You have a society that puts violent things on TV too much. You have a controlled media that plays on the hero archetype and twists it. And so there's nothing wrong with being a man or being masculine. I'm going to turn the camera. There's nothing wrong with that. It's how the media uses it to turn wrestling heroes like Hulk Hogan into the NWO. Yeah, and that's all you need to hear on that one. And that's poetry right there. That's poetry right there. That's beautiful. How they did that. How they make a hero, then they get the hero to be a villain and a wife beater, and they're still a hero. And then they have these people on TV, like Rick Rude and others, that are basically stripping on stage before anybody and everybody in 1990. And what you have here in the sophisticated system is them slipping through the unthinkable through the mainstream. And so, you know, these people that are on the left that think that they're cutting edge, if you attack every theory that was outside your box politically, you're not yet figuring out what's going on, let alone the long-term agenda for ICE. Okay? We warned you in advance and we were laughed at about the long-term agenda before ICE was even created. And now we don't know if we're going to be able to come home from this one. They assume we'll come home from this one because Daddy's always bailed out our credit card. Daddy's always bailed out our credit card. Daddy's always fixed this. Daddy may not be coming home from this one. You know how much we're in debt? To the point of no return. That's why they set up all these divisions, so that when we go through collapse, it's going to be every man, woman for themselves, and that's where the vulnerability is coming in that I warned you about for 20 years before we were even in this situation. Through the Hollywood, through the videos, through these cell phones where these children with bad mothers can access anything, they have really violent thoughts about what they're going to do when they take back power in America. Nick Fuentes said when they take back power, they're putting females in the gulags. Now, what type of person would throw me out in the streets when I'm a psychic and I'm warning and I'm signaling this from the heavens? That just tells me everything I need to know, that I need to be quiet now and stop that. Stop being so loud, because I'm not going to be able to stop this. There are much more evil forces at work here. They're going to shut me up for trying to be a good, decent person. So I'm going to go down in history And they'll be reading my words in 50 years and 100 years. But in the words of Onision, the famous YouTube creator who had some bad luck, no one will remember your name. Maybe not necessarily you, but I'm just speaking in a general tone. For the vast majority of this fake news content creators, unless they're reading a book about the really bad guys in the whole Alex Jones world, no one's going to remember them and their content. And that's what people need to understand is they make certain people superstars now that give them false hope, like certain people that died recently via suicide in Colorado because they couldn't handle the solar flares. Yeah, if you had a nickel every time I said solar flares and mental stuff, because that's what we're experiencing right now. And I'm sober. I'm experiencing the high, and they are too. And our vibes are feeding off of each other. I'm not trying to attack anybody, and no one's attacked me yet today, but the day is early. The day is early. What I have to train myself on, if I want to stay a ninja warrior, Jedi warrior, is to not react with low vibrational frequency. If I deal with I use the word loosely, reptoids. That came down from the mountain to drink from the river. If I deal with like a reptoid jail guard who's like fantasizing about me in a cavity church, preferably photographed with artificial intelligence, I just need to be calm, meditate, ground, and when the weather is warmer, I need to stick my feet in the river. Now, I'd like to find a wife or a girlfriend through therealsalida.substack.com, but I'd rather just tell the truth. I'd rather just tell the truth and not lie about my beliefs and attract someone to me when I'm ready to hand out cards, because I have way more to offer when people read my words than hear my voice. And I tell people that you haven't even gotten to my blogs and my writing, when you don't have to hear me and my fast explosive aura, is next level. And I know it's going to be written or read in 100 years if there is any retaining of the information. That's why I say, like here, I'm going to take my writing. I don't want to slow down. I want to speed up. I'm going to take my writing, all these journals that I've been saving for years, and I'm going to do it right here with my advanced cognitive function. Okay, and I'm going to write and write and write and write and upload to the cloud from the spiritual place. And then in the coming years, as I approach 50 in a few years, 50 years old, me, 50 in a few years, then I want to retire and I just want to be quiet. I would be a family man if I could. That's what people don't understand. But I don't think I have I don't know if I did something wrong. I don't know if I blew up a planet. I don't know. I was told I escaped Atlantis. I don't know what I did. But clearly I'm not marked for relationships on this planet. And I haven't even messed around in 10 years. And the last time I did, she was in the military and a cop. What type of world am I in where the guy like that, the only person comes up, and she broke my heart just to have some fun? Okay, I'll just save the full rant. So you go over there, you do everything I'm against, and you don't call me, you say you got home safe when you go home 3 o'clock after chain smoking in my room. I just thought I would share that. Wow, what a bad memory. Anyways, we need to return to an era where men can be totally honest. I don't know if society was always like this, where we got to, quote, play game, but it's hardcore now. It's cemented in this reality that you don't say, oh, you're about on the first, whatever. Yes, you do. Well, why would you do that? So that you don't waste any time unless you have an ulterior motive. So if you have a motive to like change the world with like a goddess or something, like, oh, sorry, that's me, I'm a weirdo, and like write books and stuff for like future generations, okay, it gets pretty deep. Then you're not in a INCAL world. You're in a world where your standards are like, you're looking for either a goddess or a woman who's a wannabe goddess. Can't be a wannabe Jesus, but you can be a wannabe goddess. And being against human trafficking is part and parcel to that. There is no such thing as being advanced spiritually and refusing to address violence against children. I do not tolerate it. I don't believe in it. I believe that that is a fairy tale, that we don't address those things. All right, let's segue. I'm altering We've reached 58 minutes. We're going to reach conclusion here at 1 hour. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tip your waitress. We have Jennifer coming down from stage 5 in just a few moments. So get ready for that. And we'll see you on the next planet.